But there's a challenge, though. You know, as I've reflected on this the last 16 years, you know, how do you engage more people around this, right? You know, with the work that you do with Usher New Look, right? You know, what percentage of the kids, the 10,000 kids that have gone through the training, the New Look training program, you know, what percentage do you think come from broken families?
Yeah. You know, so 13,000 youth.
13,000?
13,000 that we've served and trained as leaders. 60–70% of those are female.
Okay.
So that's an interesting stat right there. And of the remaining, you know, 40%, 30% of youth who New Look has served, of the males, the majority of them, to answer your question direct, it's the majority of them come from single parents household, low income. You know, they come from what they deem dropout factories, you know, the schools. And, you know, like I said, it always breaks my heart when a young man says, you know, you're like the father figure I never had, you know, or you're like the father I never had, you're a father figure to me. And it breaks my heart because I know what it takes to be a father, and I have not spent nearly enough time to enter that category in this young man's life. And for him to, you know, see me as that, just really, it's like they're starving, you know. And so, you know, you and I, piece of bread is just the beginning, but if we're starving, the piece of bread is everything. And I feel like these kids are starving, you know, for male role models, male attention, you know, so much, you know, male role models, pop culture, just period, you know, they don't, you know, really walk the talk of fatherhood. You have like a Dwayne Wade, who I think is really striving for that, you know, but even a lot of public figures, you know, with what you see coming out, you know, nonstop. I think it's tough for these kids, and that's why they follow a similar path.
Well, let me just say something about Dwayne Wade, because I did have the chance to meet him last fall. He was in Chicago. It was about the same time that his book came out, and I think the title is Father First, Why My Life is Bigger Than Basketball.
There you have it.
And there's not too many guys who are in the limelight, right? Whether they're an athlete, an entertainer like Usher, who are willing to go out there, right, and be public about the relationship that they have with their kids.
Right.
And, you know, those two guys are stratospheric people, and coincidentally they have two boys. They're really young, right? So they're young dads, and I really admire people like that. One of my early inspirations 16 years ago was a guy by the name of Mike Singletary.
Oh yeah.
And Mike and his wife Kim have 7 kids, and he's a pretty serious guy, right? I mean, you know, he takes his fathering, you know, to
another level,
a high level, right? And he also wrote a book, right? Daddy's Home at Last was the title of the book. And to my knowledge, maybe there's been others, but those two guys sort of stand out from the others, you know, as far as not just trying to be a good dad, trying to walk the walk, but you know, encouraging others to think about their fathering and reflect on it. So,
and you know, I think the key is we have to make sure that her youth are not taking their cues just from celebrities when it comes to how to be a father, you know, because the truth is each male has the opportunity to, you know, influence, you know, a young man in their circle, whether it's a nephew or a kid at church or you know, a kid on the sports team or whatever the case is, because they're gonna have an opportunity to have deeper conversations and go behind the scenes. And you know, for the youth who we work with at New Look, I openly talk to them about, you know, married life, and I bring my kids, you know, to the academy when we have programming. And so it's a Saturday and my 2 older girls are in their karate uniforms, and I bring them, you know, and because I want them to see that, you know, it's important. Okay, if I'm here on a Saturday, my kids, my family's coming with me because it's important that I spend time with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, a couple kids have cited that, and that's interesting to me. You know, that they're that observant, and so I think we all have that responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as role models. I think we all are role models.
Yeah, well, it's a good point. You know, we're probably the product of all the role models that we've had, and
That's right.
I'd like to think that they're mostly good role models. Mm-hmm. But candidly, you know, I can look back and say, you know, I learned some really important things from bad role models.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And you can say, I want to be more like that,
Right.
or I don't want to be like that.
Right.
Right? And you make choices.
No, that's right.
Who do I want to be more like?
That's right.
Right? And to your point earlier, you know, some people, you know, emulate athletes. Mm-hmm. Some emulate entertainers, right? Because these are the people in the spotlight, right? They've got a lot of fame. In some cases, they have a lot of fortune too, mm-hmm. right? So they're like, yeah, I want to be like fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. And who are some of the role models? I know you talked about your dad earlier, but who are some of the role models that you had, that you looked up to?
Yeah, definitely my dad. You know, first and foremost, I had this amazing relationship with him. He's like a Jedi mind master or something. You know, even after I moved out the house, if I was doing something I shouldn't be doing, I would hear his voice. And, you know, I'm like, man, I'd feel guilty, and he's, you know, 800 miles away. And I'm like, I don't get it, but definitely him. But you know, I've been in nonprofit since I was 14. Worked at the YMCA right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and you know, coming out of high school, you know, neither one of my parents went to college. And so getting out of high school was you know, kind of the standard. And I was teaching, you know, classes at the YMCA at the time, and Mr. Richardson used to come in and take my class. And every Wednesday he would say, young man, why aren't you in school? And I'm giving them different excuses. Oh, I had a hernia operation, which was true, you know, which was true, but, you know, I'm sure I could have attended classes.
How many hernia operations?
Yeah, exactly.
Did you have?
Well, when are you gonna? Oh, I'm trying to debate which school to go to. You know, so I'm giving him all these different excuses. So one Wednesday he came in and he said, Sean, next Wednesday I'm taking you down to, you know, MATC to get you enrolled. And I said, oh, okay. You know, I thought he was kind of bluffing because I knew I worked, you know, every Wednesday. Next Wednesday comes, and him and Glenn Haley, who's the executive director at the YMCA, come walking down the stairs, and they're like, Glenn says, all right, you're off paid for the rest of the day. You know, go with Mr. Richardson. And next thing I know, I'm sitting filling out financial paperwork, and a week later, I'm sitting in class. I'm trying to go, now, how the hell did I? Literally. That's how fast. Yeah, that's how I got back into college. Was, you know, Mr. Richardson seeing something in me, and you know, and then I'm going to school, and you know, it was getting expensive, even with the financial aid. And I wanted to transfer to Cardinal Stritch University, and I was sitting with Jack Lunn, who was the president of the YMCA at the time, and he was just asking me what was going on. I said, well, you know, I'll probably get my associate, but I won't go much further than that. And he said, why not? And I said, you know, Jack, you know what you pay me, you know, at the Y, and I can't afford, you know, that. And he said, yeah, you know, well, it's interesting. We're thinking about starting a minority scholarship program. Yeah, we're going to do it, and you're the first recipient.
No way.
And yeah, so they paid for my schooling, and you know, but if you think about it, all along the way, you know, all these different men played very important roles in my life. They made up the gaps, you know, where my dad maybe didn't have that expertise, you know, because my dad didn't go to college. Maybe he didn't feel comfortable pushing that, you know, but these men did. And I mean, I could just go on, and you know, even today, you know, I look at John Rice, you know, who's vice chairman of GE, and him and his wife Cammie, I've formed a very close relationship.
These are board
with
members.
Them. They're board members with New
Right.
Look, and formed very close relationships with them. But one of the things I admire most about John is when I see his interaction with his sons, and I'm going, look, this is you know, the big guy at GE, number 2 at GE, and if he can have that kind of relationship with his kids, spend that kind of time with his kids, surely Sean Wilson can make it home, you know, in enough time to, you know, to spend time with his kids. So I don't think you ever stop having role models. You know, I think they take different shapes. You know, and then I have a friend Ian who back home who, from a spiritual standpoint, I just really admire his tenacity for, you know, getting a deeper relationship with God. I'm like, I want that. You know, it's powerful to see how committed he is, and he's a role model spiritually for me. And you know, I like I said, I don't think you ever stop having role models. They just come in different shapes and forms, and I think at different points in your life.